has gone on for almost a year now and appears likely to go on for perhaps several more years, but certainly for quite a long while to come. And the precise reasons for it, though, are still not clear. I don't see it as an attempt to reassert a Soviet rule. That is, there's not going to be communist rule established. It'll be the kind of classic imperial Russian domination. Russia didn't become that size simply by acting defensively. It has done a great deal of conquest and domination of smaller neighbors, and that is what I see as the posture that Russia is taking toward Ukraine, to reassert a kind of imperial rule there. Putin, however, has been involved in war almost throughout his 23 years as president. He came into office at the end of 1999 during a second war in Chechnya, which Russian troops did manage to reassert control over Chechnya, but with a great deal of bloodshed. In August 2008, Putin had sent the Russian army to fight against Georgia, the former Soviet Republic. In 2014, Russian troops were sent to annex Crimea and then to instigate a war in eastern Ukraine. In 2015, Putin deployed troops to Syria to begin fighting on behalf of Bashar al-Assad's government, which had killed already several 100,000 of its own people. And then, most recently, the war against Ukraine. For the most part, he has shown himself to be willing to kill vast numbers of Russian soldiers and vast numbers of civilians in the target country. So he will go down, I think, in history, the history of Russia, as one of the bloodiest and cruelest of rulers. I hope if there is ever an international tribunal set up, that Putin will be, and others assisting him, will be put on trial for launching a war of aggression. They can also be charged with war crimes, with various crimes against humanity. Ultimately, the most serious charge at Nuremberg was launching a war of aggression, because that war of aggression made possible all of the other crimes that occurred, and that's where I think Putin bears a great deal of responsibility. I would define, if Russia wins, that in fact it does reassert control over Ukraine. It overthrows the government of Zelensky or any possible successor and puts in place a puppet of the Russian government. It essentially eliminates Ukraine as an independent country. In that scenario, I think it would be extremely damaging to international security. It would essentially pave the way for Russia's next war of aggression. I think a much better scenario would be if Russia loses, that if it is widely recognized as a humiliating defeat in Russia, then it will very likely call into question Putin's political standing, perhaps result in the ouster of Putin. That doesn't mean it will be a better person who replaces him. I think that there are several people who would be at least as bad, perhaps even worse. But still, there would be some prospect of positive change in Russia, a move away from the kind of Soviet-style repression that has been reimposed there, especially over the last year. There is self-inflicted, I think, concern in the West about the potential use of nuclear weapons. I think that is mostly, extremely unwise to be limited by that, because Russia really has nothing to gain from the use of nuclear weapons. So as a result, Western governments have repeatedly talked, including the US government, have repeatedly talked about so-called red lines that they don't want to cross. And that has meant that they have been quite deliberate and slow in providing weaponry. Now, the thing, though, that Putin wants to do is to establish Russian great power while defeating Ukraine, and that's something that I think that Western governments are not going to permit. But at the same time, this war, I think the outcome of it, to go back to the main question you asked, is going to be settled on the battlefield. I don't see that a negotiated settlement is going to get very far, because the Russian government has repeatedly shown that it attaches no value to the commitments it undertakes.